on to our campfire chat, and we are pleased to have in the studio with us Oliver Rippel, founding partner, Asia Partners. Please, Oliver, join me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. It's good to be in Singapore.
I think the last time was on the WIT stage in 2019 when things looked really, really different.
Very different. It feels like a decade or two ago, I must say.
I know.
I'm sure, are you well as well?
I am very well,
Good,
I think,
good.
yes.
Great.
I will be even better after this event, after this roadshow. But now we're
Fantastic.
going to get into the discussion, and it really is an exciting moment for Southeast Asia e-commerce and tech, right? If I can reel it off, so Grab listing via SPAC. We have Faith acquired for $45 million. We have Coupang entering Singapore. And then we have the Gojek Tokopedia merger, right? So great timing for you. You just closed $384 million in commitments. We want to know where that money is going to go. And in 2019, you called it the Southeast Asia's golden age, right? And you predicted, you made 10 predictions, and I'm going to share a slide. And I just picked 4 predictions, which you're going to show the audience, right? So do you feel that COVID has made it even more of a golden age for you, or has it tarnished it?
Right. So, I mean, first of all, you know, if you talk about COVID, you cannot talk about COVID without sort of like, again, emphasizing the big human tragedy that comes with it. Like if you look at our region, you know, countries like Indonesia and Philippines are really affected, maybe 2.6 million or more cases.
India as well, right?
India
now.
as well, and it's a great human tragedy. If you sort of like zoom in into sort of like our golden age theme, right, that we the term that we coined at Asia Partners in 2019, which was mostly related to basically looking at the rise of tech companies in Southeast Asia and saying that the time is right for that. The past year has been neutral to positive for that development. And I think what was a bit subdued is that obviously GDP suffered in all of the markets that we are operating in here in the region. And that has an impact on disposable income and therefore also on sort of like tech companies and how tech companies make their money and the customers that they can adopt. But at the same time, we have seen a great acceleration of offline to online migration. If you take, you know, areas like e-commerce, you know, health tech, etc. And also on the business side, we have seen sort of like acceleration of digitization efforts within companies. So all of those are very positive for the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think we heard that in the last panel, right, where, you know, all the travel companies were really kind of fixing their tech, and then their suppliers are all kind of also using that time to fix their nets.
Right.
So
Exactly.
one of the predictions you made was that there would be more than 20 billion-dollar value tech companies from Southeast Asia by 2029. Has COVID changed any of that prediction? And how will SPAC impact funds like yours? Do you think that will accelerate the making of more unicorns?
Yeah. So we made 8 predictions in 2019, and we actually have publicly assessed ourselves against those 8 predictions. And let me put it this way. In 4 predictions, we were about right. In 4 predictions, let's put it positively, work in progress. So what has been very positive is that the fundamentals are right, you know, and especially the strength of local and regional companies to really get to scale, to sustainable scale in the region, that continues to be as sound as before, maybe even more so because of some localization push. Where we've seen a bit sort of like slower adoption, but it seems to be catching up now quite quickly this year, is sort of like the formation of large new billion-dollar companies, and those companies actually going to the public markets. This year will be very different in this regard, but last year was a bit slow.
Yeah.
So what was interesting though is on that one prediction of the third one here on the bullet point, $400 billion of incremental equity value by 2029. No one could have predicted that about a quarter of that will come from one company alone. And that all happened last year, which was obviously C.
Yeah.
So that has been a tremendous success story for the whole region. With regards to SPAC, we think that it's just another way how companies can ultimately transition from being a private company to ultimately becoming a public company, right? So the traditional path was more IPO, In the US, you had also direct listings, probably not as relevant here for Southeast Asia. Spec or the actual de-speccing is another way for companies, and it's not one size fits all. Each company has to assess what is the right product, who are the right partners
Right,
for
but
each
it's
offering.
opened up another alternative road, right, to creating value for the company.
Absolutely.
So one of your predictions, which was interesting because the theme is really about global, local, and one of your predictions said that 70% of the winners will be regional platforms, and 30% will be Indonesia-focused platforms. And you felt that the Southeast Asian market was made more for local, regional versus global. So that's interesting. How has COVID changed the way you think of travel as an investor? Because I know that you are invested in Red Doors,
That's
for
right.
example.
That's right. So first of all, if we take a step back, so we have said that for certain business models, local or regional companies will be the winners. For other business models, it will be the global guys, right? So Facebook has not seen any any diminishing of their strength in the region, and the same applies for Google or Microsoft, right? Those will be strong global companies also, in this region. But for certain business models, especially where you have strong localization needs, there will be more than not local or regional winners. And that is true, especially in categories like travel. Today, what we have seen is, or in the last year, what we have seen is, because of the closure of borders, that there was much more demand for domestic travel.
Yep.
And if you look at the numbers, right, you take a country like Indonesia, local flights are actually almost back to pre-pandemic levels, but international flights are still 90% down or more than that, right? So it's more like the travel to Surabaya than the travel to Bali, right?
Okay.
That has become front and center, which was positive for companies like Red Doors because they mainly rely on domestic travel.
Okay, so looking to the future AC after COVID, briefly, who will emerge as major competitors to the OTAs?
So we see two big trends emerging, or actually already happening as we speak. One is, I would call that sort of like further generalization of service offerings. So travel will become more and more also part of the category offering of, let's say, super apps. And you've seen, I'm sure, like Flipkart's acquisition of Cleartrip in
Yeah.
India, so which is a great move for them to expand their addressable market. And we will see more of that happening over time. The challenge is always, it's very easy to do for highly standardized, products in travel, like flights. It's more difficult for non-standardized products like hotel rooms. So here, what we've seen is actually the opposite. We've seen that's the second trend, like a more specialization of these type of services. So the emergence of budget hotel platforms, the emergence of travel destination service providers like Klook and others, right? So what will be important from an OTA perspective is that you're not getting squeezed from both sides, right? And what I've been part of the eBay journey for quite a while before from 2000 to end of 2009. That's kind of like a little bit what happened to that model, right? Because it got squeezed from the Amazon side on one side and the classified side from the other side. So OTA has to continue to reinvent itself as well to stay relevant, right?
Yeah,
With the
otherwise
changing
they will
times.
be sort of in the middle of between a rock and a hard place.
We don't want to be there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so either or. What are you more interested in enterprise or consumer tech plays?
I can't say both. so
Okay,
here's
you've
the
got
thing.
a lot of money, so you can say both.
And here's the thing, like we actually didn't expect to see a lot of enterprise company investments for our first fund. And for the reason that actually if you look at China, and China is often still a great blueprint for how Southeast Asia will emerge, there wasn't actually a lot of enterprise, for example, enterprise software offering going through massive value creation 10 to 15 years ago. It was mainly consumer tech. And we're still seeing also in Southeast Asia, mainly consumer tech being of relevance, but actually there's more and more enterprise software coming through the ranks. And these are sort of like, again, you can categorize them in two big buckets. These are either mainly Singapore headquartered companies that sell to big enterprises and often have not only a regional, but like a pan-Asian or sometimes even global footprint. And then they are very, again, pretty much on thesis for us, very localized and regionalized companies that mainly focuses, for example, on SME companies, right? Whether they're in travel industry or in e-commerce and trade, wherever, offering very bespoke, specialized services for those constituents. And that's very interesting. Still a bit small, but they are actually growing very nicely.
It's certainly one of the breakout moments during COVID, actually, sort of this blossoming of enterprise tech, even in travel.
That's
so
right.
That's
right.
interesting. So are you planning to launch funds to invest in the same thesis that you developed this thesis for Southeast Asia? Are you looking at other regions like MENA, India, LATAM, or Africa? Because I know you have a special interest in Africa, for example.
I do, and I'm originally from Germany as well, right? So consider myself like strongly a global citizen. Look, the regions are at different life cycle stages. So even India and definitely Africa is still a bit earlier. So that is more like a time factor. LATAM is interesting in many ways. Latin America is ahead of Southeast Asia. Was much more ahead of Southeast Asia when it came to e-commerce, for example. But in other instances, if you think about ride sharing or super apps, right, it's behind Southeast Asia.
Okay.
But yeah, I think Southeast Asia made a lot of sense for us because we have the most investing experience here. 4 out of our 6 co-founders are from Southeast Asia. The region is ready. But we are not called Southeast Asian partners, right? We are called Asia partners.
All right.
So in that perspective, we will follow the companies, right? The companies are already looking much more on India and looking much more towards like Northeast Asia. So these will be naturally like expansion areas for us over time.
Okay, so let's talk about sustainability, because in the last panel there was a lot of talk about climate change. So as an investor, how are you thinking about it? Like, will you be including sustainability as one of the ticks when you're considering an investment? No,
thanks for raising this question, because this is actually very dear to our collective hearts at Asia Partners. And one of the founding and design principles was hey, we need to bring in purpose, not when we are successful over a long period of time, right? We need to bring it in like as part of the founding story of Asia Partners. So both sort of like from a policy perspective, assessing investments, helping companies on their own sort of like ESG and purpose journey. We are quite involved, taking a very active stance there. Also, we have terrific sort of like support on our advisory board, etc., with regards to helping us on that purpose journey. Overall, what we've seen with entrepreneurs in Southeast Asia is there's a tremendous desire to do good. And to use basically sort of like an emergence of scale and relevance that often entrepreneurs have in their local communities to do the right thing. And if we can be of help that journey in one way or the other, we would be honored.
Well, I mean, sustainability tech, is going to be a big thing for the next few years, right? Because Singapore's come up with its 2030 green plan, I mean, globally. So let's go to you as a traveler. And before we do that, let's go to an audience polling. And I'm going to ask the audience to, again, rate this global trend, which is businesses will act on the growing awareness of sustainability of travelers. So rate 1 to 10 in terms of likelihood to happen, 1 being least likely and 10 being most likely. What would you vote, Oliver? Will they act on the growing awareness of sustainability to travelers?
So 1 is least likely, 10 is?
Yeah, 10 is most likely.
7.
7, okay. Okay, let's go. Let's see, and we can see the audience going probably a bit more skeptical, maybe. Firstly, I guess, is like whether travelers will actually, vote with their wallet, right? So as a traveler yourself, will you be making more conscious decisions about how many flights you take, for example? Like you used to travel like crazy, will you cut back? And then what hotels would you choose?
Yeah. So flights is the low-hanging fruit for global citizens like myself. And many others, because of just the sheer kind of like enormous impact that this has on carbon footprint, right? Especially international flights, right? So I hope, and I will try my very best moving forward to have more deliberate travel, maybe lesser flights overall, but longer trips, and do this a bit more planned and thought through, right? Gladly, I'm German, so I love planning ahead. So hopefully that helps me on that journey. But I think actually, if we as an industry, as investors, can solve the too many flights issue, then we can move on to hotels and other things. But that in itself will hopefully already make a big impact here.
Do you think that's a problem that you as a business traveler would like the travel industry to tackle in helping you measure your carbon footprint?
Yeah, 100%, absolutely.
Okay.
I agree with that. Look, I also hope that the emergence of like video conferencing, etc., will make a lot of business travel obsolete. For certain things you have to meet face to face.
Are you with Bill Gates in believing that 50% of business travel will disappear?
You have to look at it on a sort of like you can't look at this collectively, right? If I think about, for example, again Red Door's business in Indonesia, right? These are often essential business travel that you just can't do via Zoom meetings, right? The proverbial traveling salesman,
Exactly, right?
the,
I mean,
the,
it's
the
like
maintenance
Rohit
guy.
said, there's still that swathe of population that
Yeah.
needs to get out there
Right.
and shake the hands of their,
100%.
Okay.
So that I don't think will go away anytime soon.
Okay.
Whether sort of like at the high end travel, companies and individuals will be more responsible. That is pretty much desired. I'm not enough of a travel expert to know how much of a total impact that we have on the sector, but that
Okay.
would be sort of like
But
my
you
prediction.
yourself are going to be a lot more conscious along with your partners, right?
That's right.
Okay, so big question here. In 2020, the world's richest billionaires got 1.8 trillion richer. Tech especially got richer, right? So how do you see your responsibility in this to close the divide, especially in Southeast Asia, which you are focusing on, where there's such a big divide in the equality? How
Right.
do you see your role as an investor in this?
Yeah. So the good news is like while that's true and a lot of especially global tech got bigger and the entrepreneurs behind it got richer, the fundamental issue that those companies still have for many business applications in Southeast Asia is that they're not localized enough. So that's the opportunity, right, for the local underdog, right? And it's our responsibility as the investor community to find those and to support those, right? To build sort of like truly kind of like winning partnerships for the local market. So I'm actually very bullish on that because I've just seen that it's so hard for those global companies to really go down, kind of ground zero into the heartland or the tier 2 or tier 3 cities, many of the markets that we operate in, and develop like bespoke product that works for those communities. So that's the opportunity that we have here for the local and regional
Okay, because you're here, you got boots on the ground. All right.
Yeah.
So BC, a lot of companies were kind of chasing unprofitable growth, right, as an investor. So DC, are you going for, what kind of models are you going for? Like you have to be profitable before you invest in it, or are you seeing a more rational business model?
Yeah, and we were very old-fashioned or not old-fashioned, maybe just out of fashion, because we already said in 2019 that we actually don't like unicorns, we like rhinos. And rhinos for us are companies that ultimately go public, not on the strength of a like revenue multiple, but an earnings multiple.
Okay.
And the companies that we look at, and we have the benefit of looking at companies that are already a bit more established in the market, are always companies that are relatively close to profitability and have strong monetization already established. And that's very important for us. I mean, if you look at most of the successful tech companies, some of the largest tech companies like Microsoft, like eBay, etc., they actually didn't raise that much capital.
Okay, so you want a hybrid rhino unicorn.
That's right.
Okay, question for you.
Yeah.
Would you invest in sustainability-focused businesses even though they might not guarantee immediate ROI?
So it's a good question, right? We believe that ultimately sustainable business practices will result in a good ROI, right? So if that's a challenge, then maybe we don't, it doesn't pass sort of like the business sort of like filter. But ultimately, we think actually that sustainable businesses will generate a higher ROI than others. So it's maybe the wrong framing of the question.
Okay. All right, so let's end with rapid fire.
Mm-hmm.
We've all had a lot of time to spend with family this last 14 months.
That's right.
What new thing have you learned about your children?
Oh, my kids, so they actually care deeply about the issues in the world, right? And that was a big surprise for me, although they are still a bit young, but things like, climate change or the US election as an example, right? They care deeply about that, but then they also care deeply about sort of like, watching Hell's Kitchen with their family, right? So it was a very, very nice time from a bonding perspective.
Okay.
I didn't want to miss it, yeah.
What new thing have you learned about yourself?
Just very, very grateful, right? I think like you realize how grateful one can be to be here in Singapore during the pandemic, right? Grateful one is for family and also for Asia partners, right? That we have been able to actually build the firm despite all these circumstances.
Okay. And a new thing that you learn about the founders of the companies you're invested in?
Oh boy, yeah. So they, I mean, I'm unbelievably in awe of what they have accomplished, right? Just the sheer ability of effecting change management, despite everything that has been thrown at them. And I'm not talking only about Ahmed, but I'm talking also about the other entrepreneurs that we have backed, right? It's we wouldn't be anywhere without them, right? So again, like I think what it actually underscored from an investor perspective is it's all about the entrepreneur, right? It's of course you want to have the right thesis and golden age and the right kind of like sector view, but ultimately you need to have a great
Comes
founder.
down to the founder, comes down to the execution.
100%.
Thank you so much, Oliver, for
Thanks
joining
for
us.
inviting
Thank
me.
you.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
thank
see
you.
you soon.
Thank you.